Thank you for joining us at Miniature Wargaming Labs. So in this episode of Paint With Us, we are going to go over how we painted Hawkeye for Marvel Crisis Protocol. So, to begin with, he was primed using standard Mechanicus Gray from Games Workshop. Now at $22 a can, not everyone likes to go that route, so there's always Army Painter. Check by your friendly local game store and see what kind of primers they have available. But always remember, you could just use Krylon. I know a lot of gamers who've been painting for decades, and they'll use Krylon. Just don't get too over-enthusiastic when spraying down the model, or it could blot out a lot of the detail. Now, when painted this model, pretty much the only brushes you need is you could probably stick with one really fine tip brush. I have a smaller one in case there's something I want to get into, especially when you're trying to work in between this little arm guard there. Alright, so, and then I have this sloppy brush for applying Nuln Oil on there. So pretty easy brush use here. Now let's talk about what paints I used for this model. So his uniform, it's dark, it looks black, but what we used was a combination of P3 coal black, so it's got a touch of blue in it, then a highlight over that in Fang, which is a gray blue, and the final spot highlight was a little mixture of the Fang and standard Mechanicus gray. Now for the purple, which you see in his shoes, his chest plate, and the fletchings of his arrow, that is pretty much P3's beaten purple. And at certain points I'd blend in pallid witch flesh in there to get a lighter purple to make it look like light was showing on there. For his skin, that was just barbarian flesh and Reichland Flesh Shade. Now you can see his cool shades there. I recommend using either just a standard black, or if you have it, Vallejo's Glossy Black. It gives a little bit more shine to his Ray-Bans there. And for his crop of hair, super blonde, that's Ural Yellow, highlighted with a mixture of Ural Yellow and Iron Rack. No, not Iron Rack, sorry. It's Pallid Witch Flesh. And that's to create some depth there on his dome. And of course, certain stages I love Nuln Oil. That helps darken this down and give some shadow to him. And for the little metally bits, that's a mixture of Lead Belcher and Runefang Steel with Nuln Oil in between. Alright, so let's go ahead and get started painting this guy. Alright, so I have my green arrow. He is primed in Games Workshop Standard Mechanicus Gray. And now I'm ready to put down the first coat of paint. And for that, as I've already painted Black Widow, and I want them in matching body armor colors, I'm going to use coal black to paint most of his outfit. While this is a black color, it does have a slight blue turquoise tint to it, which will make the highlights I'll put on his suit really pop later. So we've got our paint shaken up. And since we're going to be doing some rough blocking all over him, we don't need a super fine paintbrush. So just get this in here. Now some of these parts I'm painting coal black now will be a different color later. That's alright. So we'll get all the way around his suit, his boots, his gauntlets. Alright, so now we've got on our coal black. I'm going to start blocking in the areas that are going to be purple. And for that, I'm going to use P3 Beaten Purple. So I'll give this a shake. Alright, so I'm just going to go and mark out what I would like painted. And so that's going to be the purple on the chest of his armor. And then a little section on his shoes. Don't have to worry about being neat when we do some of the tidying up with the armor. Should be able to get that cleaned up. So it's just a little portion. I guess he's got a purple leather there. Now that we've got the purple on, I'm going to paint the metal bits. And that's going to include, at this stage, his little belt buckle and this piece of terrain he's standing on there. For that, I'm going to use Lead Belcher. Now I'm going to paint some other parts of metal color, but instead of using Lead Belcher, I am going to use Runefang Steel, so a brighter silver. And I'm going to do a little object right there on his belt and the bow itself. So, get this shaken and get it open. The bow. So I think we're ready to put our wash on this model, and I'm going to use some Nuln Oil, and I'm going to coat everything I've painted. And for that, I'm going to get a brush that I've already messed up a lot. I'm going to wet it a little bit, and then I'm just going to take it and really get it in there. I want to take that coal black and really stain it black along with the purple. Alright, so we really got that guy coated. So we're going to let him dry, and then we'll move on to the next step. Alright, so the Nuln Oil has dried, and I'm ready to start painting his skin. But see, it's gotten really dark, so I am going to use some Iron Rack skin. This will just create a base that's a lighter color, so when I put his skin tone on top, it won't be an issue. So I'm going to do is take my little brush here. I'm just going to carefully mark out the skin. Now I'm at a point of where I don't want to miss and hit his armor. So I'm going to gently and carefully just follow this around. Now there's not much skin. The trickiest part is actually going to be his forearm guard for his bow. Trying to get in there. tip of the brush to be sharp, and short little actions there. And I'll probably go ahead and do his hair. So I got to make that real blonde there to match the box art. Alright, so I'm going to give that white iron rack skin paint some time to dry. I'm going to do the little bow shafts real quickly here. And for that, I am going to use Abaddon Black. Alright, so that's black now. We're going to let that dry. Now, we're going to take some Barbarian Flesh, some Army Painter paint there. And I've already squeezed some out. I want to mix that around. Sometimes it clumps up. Alright. And now we'll just cover over the white. So we've got the skin tone on, so now I'm going to take a little bit of Reichland Flesh Wash. I'm going to take a little brush, and I just want a thin coat, so it sinks down. Alright, so as we see, it's already pooling into the recesses, and once we get this on, we're going to let it dry for a while. Excellent. The skin's dried. Now I'm just going to go and I'm going to take a little bit more of the Barbarian Flesh, and I'm just going to put some highlights at the top here. I'll lighten it up a little bit and give him a little more texture. So I'm just writing the raised parts of his musculature. And we'll keep on doing that all around. Alright, so I'm going to call his skin done. Got some dimensionality there. Now I'm going to do his shades. And for that, I'm using glossy black. So, painted the shades in very carefully. And now, we are going to move on to the hair. And in the box art, it's a really bright blonde. So we're going to go and start with a base of Ural Yellow. And that's the reason we wanted the hair whitened out again, so this yellow would stick. So I'll probably need 2 coats. Alright, so looks like we're ready to move on to the next step. His hair has dried. And now what I'm going to do next is I'm going to work on this black armor here, or his bodysuit. So I'm going to base his coloring similar to how I did Black Widow, since they hang out. So I'm going to put out highlights of Games Workshop's The Fang. Now what this will do is the coal black is similar to like Incubi black. It's got a blue tint to it. This is gray with a blue on it. So I'm going to make it look like light is reflecting off of his suit. This will give him a little bit more depth. Because otherwise it just looks like a really dark model. So I'm going to do just a little touch there. And thinking of light coming straight down, I'm going to put a little highlight there along his thigh. If you have any questions, just go look at like some of the comic book art about where you can put these. You can follow some of the musculature on the model. And some of the raised edges. See, already there you can see his thigh picking that out. Alright, so we'll finish going around the model. Now be careful doing his little archery gauntlets up here, because you don't want to touch the skin. Got that where I want it. So the further along the process we move, the more careful we have to be. Finished doing some highlights on the body armor so you can see it a little bit better. And now I want to do some highlights on the purple. So for that, he's got his area on his boots and on his chest. And I'm going to highlight the edges, the fletching of his arrows with the same purple I used before. So P3's Beaten Purple. So just a little bit of color. Now here on his chest, his stomach, put a little highlight there, there. And here I'm just going to do a little spot treatment on the top of his abs. Start creating some lighting to bring those out. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my little tool here. I'm going to grab a spot of that purple. Get that out a little bit. Let's do the fletching of the arrows just using the side of the brush. Just catch the edges of them, because I want them to be black area arrows and dark fletching. Alright. So now I'm going to have to blend a color, because I want to use the same type of purple, but I want it a little bit lighter for some of the highlighting. So I'm going to take my Pallid Witch Flesh, I'm going to use my same tool, grab a little bit purple in there, and I'll just start mixing it and grab some of the other purple if I want it darker. So I don't need much of it. Alright, so we're going to use this as a spot color. And what I'm going to do around the abs is I'm just going to draw little right angles on the top of the ab as if light was coming down. Get some of this on the tip of his shoes. There we go. And if we want to make this material look like it's brighter than the others, like it's a metal or just highly polished, I can take some of the same Pallid Witch Flesh, just grab a spot of it, do is just put a little spot in the corner here. So that gives his chest kind of a graphic pop to it. Now I'm going to take some Rune Fang steel, and we're going to highlight the metally bits. And by that, do whatever this thing down here is. So we'll just get the top edges. Do a little spot highlight there. And then we'll do some of this bow. Just start running some of these edges there. Don't want to put on too much and cloud into the detail. There we go. Alright, he's coming together. Now something I want to do is to get his hair to punch out more. I'm going to take some of the pallid witch flesh here, grab a little bit more white. That's one thing when you work with army painter bottles like this, it's a lot easier. Just put little drops in there. Here I've got to eyeball it. I just want a paler yellow. Alright, and getting a bunch of that paint I just made, what we're going to do is, got little areas where his hair is a little bit more defined, kind of like a spot, and just run little streaks. As if light's catching his hair. And this will tone down some of that neon yellow. There, and give it a little bit difference. And his hair, make it look like it's not so much a giant yellow helmet. Alright. Now I'm almost done. I think what I want to do is I want to brighten up some of this armor here. So I'm going to take some of the fang, grab a little bit of color there. I'm going to grab some standard Mechanicus gray. Just mix a touch in there. Alright, and so what I'm going to do with this color is just acting as if the light's coming down. Just little touches around the spots that would have the most light reflecting out of. You can put on as much as you like, but remember, less is more. Slipped. Oh well, didn't seem to do any damage there. Alright. You can see that color makes suits stand out a little bit more. give him a once around real quick there. It's looking good. Alright, I'm going to call it a day on him. So that is Green Arrow. So, thank you for joining us at Miniature Wargaming Labs, and we'll see you next time.